And, this program is called Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, sharing their Christian testimonies. Ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we were in a cult and we didn't know it. We were told we were in the truth. We were told we were in God's organization, and we were told that we were in the only true religion. We were told that if we served this cult, that we would be serving God. We were told that if we obeyed this cult, that we were obeying God. We were told that if we served this cult, that we were serving God. We were told that if we were loyal to this cult, we were loyal to God. We were told that if we served and believed and promoted and everything, then we were showing respect for God, and we had to do it all without questioning, because to question the cult was to question God, and it was all in the hope of gaining and maintaining our Heavenly Father's favor, all in the hope. We never had the assurance. We had the hope that maybe when Armageddon come, the entire cult was Armageddon, all around Armageddon and surviving Armageddon, being spared at Armageddon. We had to serve loyally and obey loyally, without question, loyally, in the hope that God would not destroy us at Armageddon, in the hope that after we had to go through cleaning up the dead bodies, that maybe we would get to live in a beautiful paradise. That's what we gave up our life for. Many of us gave up relationships, gave up our education, gave up the careers and the lives we should have had, married people that we would not normally have married. Excuse me. So we want to welcome in a lovely, lovely, beautiful lady. Her name is Jean. Her voice is as beautiful as she is, and she is going to share today her Christian testimony, her walk, her story of how she came to be in the Watchtower cult, how life was for her in the Watchtower cult, how she came out of the Watchtower cult, and how she came to Christ, how she came to know God's real plan of salvation. Dejan, is that how you say your name, dear?
Oh, yes, it's DELON. Thank you, Anne Marie.
DELON. Hello, I'm so sorry, DELON. I want to welcome you. Every time we get this Sunday is every, 6 Green Sundays every 2 weeks, so it's twice a month, and we get to have another ex-cult member from the Watchtower to share their testimony. We feel so blessed, and I want you to know, DELON, that I am grateful to you, and I am waiting to hear your story. Thank you so much. Please feel free to speak.
All right. Thank you so much, Anne Marie. I appreciate all that you do. And of course, I appreciate all that everyone does here on 6 Greens, because it's relevant, it's important, and it actually saves lives. And so I'll be more than happy to share my journey through the cult. When I was about 6 or 7 before we even became introduced to the witnesses. We did used to go to a church in the city that I was born and raised in. I will say there at that particular church, and it was that particular church, I just want to say that again, that was just something that I felt was missing even as a little girl. I was always a reader. I loved to read. Now, I wish I could retain what I read, but that's another story for another day. But I just knew something was missing, and I didn't want to put my little quarter in the collection plate. So I learned to put some little Vaseline on my arm so my mom wouldn't pinch me for not doing so. Well, she did pinch me. It would be slippery out. My cousin taught me that one. So, but my dad's sisters, my dad's parents, they were never, ever Jehovah's Witnesses. My dad and his brother, they never were Jehovah's Witnesses. But my dad's 2 sisters, they were studying with someone, and they lived in a city over from where I was born and raised. And so they're the ones that actually introduced my mother to the Jehovah's Witness community. The cult. It's not even a community, it's a cult. So about 7 years old, we were living in Houston at the time. And I think perhaps maybe too, my mom had decided to leave the city we were in to move to Houston to get away from my dad. And I think because my dad was so abusive to my mother, that maybe at that time, that religion, the false teachings actually seemed true and real to her at the time, maybe a place of comfort too, I'm not for sure. But we started studying with the witnesses, and I'll never forget the couple that actually came to study with us, because the Kingdom Hall that I was disfellowshipped from the third time, which I won't jump around, but I just needed to say that, they actually ended up being at that same Kingdom Hall, and I didn't know it until I saw them there. And how I wish that I could tell them, I wish they would have never came to do that. But we started studying, just going to the Kingdom Hall, and I'm going to now move forward because once we started studying, that was it. We stopped celebrating Christmas and anything else. And my mom became meaner. That religion actually made her meaner. I couldn't do anything. The only thing I could do, of course, are things. And now I'm just going to kind of jump like to my junior high year in school. But the only thing I could do was hang out with witness kids, and that was even selective because we didn't have a big home. We just didn't fit in. We were different, and there were about maybe 3 other families. They were different as well. We were all, I guess I'll say poor. Maybe we were the poorest ones in the congregation, so we didn't fit in with anybody. And then it didn't help that my mom was very vocal. She was not one to hold her tongue about anything. And so I remember I wanted to run track. So in junior high, I was well known. I got along very well with the kids. I of course never hung out with them, but at school we got along very well. And I had great friends. The ones who seemed to not have been my friend were the ones at the Kingdom Hall. Now I'm not saying every person is bad. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that to start bringing out, I guess I'll go ahead and call it some of the hypocrisy. And not only that, but just to show that we're all human. We're all human. Nothing separated me from the kids at school, me going to the Kingdom Hall. I was doing the same things that they were doing. I mean, I enjoyed the same things that they did. So I had won homecoming queen. I allowed them to put me like in the runoff for it, as I was actually nominated. And I stuck with it. And I was just hoping that somehow I could sneak to that homecoming game to accept my crown. Well, that day of the homecoming game, I did have to finally tell my mom because I'm like, it's going to hit the newspapers and everything. And I was going to catch a whipping at school. And so I had to let them know that I couldn't accept it. And I was so embarrassed at the time because I couldn't even understand or explain why I couldn't. So then like I said, I wanted to run track. So because I couldn't run track, I decided to, and I know this wasn't right, but I decided to try to sneak off so that I could run a track meet. I mean, I didn't even know I could run. A girl that's my dear friend to this very day, she asked me to race her, and she was the fastest girl in our county. Well, I raced her and I beat her, but I didn't even know I could run. And so anyway, I boarded a bus to go to the track meet. I had put on my track shorts underneath my gown. I had the shirt hiding outside. My friend's mom came by to pick me up, so she thought. But I had told my mom I was just going outside to take them something. So, but I left. I know that was horrible. And I would never want to do that to my mom or anybody. I did it, but I thought I was doing the right thing. I was just in 7th grade, so I didn't know any better. And then we get on the bus from the junior high school, and next thing I know, my mom was pulling up, and I was like, oh my God, no way. I'm telling you, just because of just being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, there was no line of reasoning with her. It was what she said, that was it. So we weren't allowed to like really communicate our feelings in our household, because she was by the book. She was very strict. So when she got out the car, she came up to the bus, and I was like, oh no. And so anyway, she slapped me in front of everybody. And then on Monday at school, all the kids were like, DELON, are you okay? And they knew I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And they never made fun of me, at least not to my face. But it was pretty bad because they knew that I couldn't do things. And so they would talk about that, and they would talk about it to me. And so I never really could explain myself because I didn't even fully believe what we were taught. So now moving on to high school, you guys. Although my high school years were really, really fun in the sense that when I went to school, that was my safe haven. When I came home, it was always Jehovah, 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 and the religion, shall I say, not necessarily God, but just the religion itself. So it was all about reading the magazines and standing at the corner store or the grocery store that we had here, standing there on Saturday mornings, early Saturday mornings. And I remember I would, every time I thought I saw one of my classmates, I would tell my mom I had to go to the bathroom. So I say all of that to get to this. Trying to go out and field service, basically I had to live behind a mask that honestly I had no control of holding. They held it. Because I did have some friends there at the Kingdom Hall. And so I had to wear a mask that I didn't hold. The religion actually held that mask right over my face very tightly. So I got baptized. I made a decision to get baptized. And the only reason why I made this decision was to make my mom happy. I figured that was really the only way I was going to do that anyway. If I became a baptized witness, I knew that she would then be happy because that was something that I knew she was mentally proud of. And my siblings, they were not. They were no longer at home. It was just me. I was the youngest. And so I went ahead and got baptized, even though prior to that, I couldn't even explain the religion to people. Only thing I knew were two things, that there would be an Armageddon, and there would be people that would lose their lives, and only Jehovah's Witnesses would be saved. That's all I knew. That was it. And so once I got baptized, I knew I shouldn't have gotten baptized because by that time, before then, I had a little boyfriend, shame on me, in high school. But sometimes when you're looking for love, you're looking for it oftentimes in the wrong places. Because I wasn't getting it at home, I felt like, although my mom did love me, I just felt like I wasn't because things were so strict. She was so strict. And then I definitely wasn't getting it where we were supposed to be serving, worshiping, and loving God. So got baptized. I got baptized in summer of 1990. Well, summer of 1991, going into my senior year in high school, I was disfellowshipped. Yay me. Back then it wasn't yay me, but now when I look back, I wish that would have been the one and only time I allowed them to do that to me. But I didn't. I was young and I got this fellowship. I stopped going to the Kingdom Hall. My mom stopped going to the Kingdom Hall. She started to, I guess, question and see some things. And one of the biggest things that started for me back then was the 144,000. I kept trying to make sense of it. I couldn't. One of the girls at the Kingdom Hall that I was really close to, her mother was one of the anointed. And I remember asking her questions about how did she know she's one of the anointed, and she could never answer it. Bless her heart. I mean, she was so sweet, but she could just never answer the questions for me. I clearly remember asking her several times, and she just told me, because she knows. Well, I just never believed it. And so once I did, I got this fellowship, and like I said, we stopped going to the Kingdom Hall. It was about 10 years before I decided to ever go back. I left, stayed a part of the world, as they call it. And again, that's where I made the majority of my great friends. When I was my senior year in high school, the girl that was my best friend, which her mother was my mother's best friend, we all went to the Kingdom Hall together. I had a baby. I got pregnant January of my senior year. Of course, graduated. Had my baby in September of the same year, 1992. The same girl from the Kingdom Hall, she was actually sleeping with my child, is my son, had a son, with my son's father. I had no clue of any of that any of that was going on. And again, I'll remind you that she goes to the Kingdom Hall, that she did. I don't condone her actions on that part. And I no longer knock her. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Dejan, I am,
yes,
please forgive me for interrupting. Can you back up a little bit? You said you got pregnant in high school, you had a little boy, and it sounded like there was some incest going on, or something was going on, or somebody else had a baby from your baby's father. Well, I'm sorry, you kind of went over that real quick. Do you mind going back and repeating what you just said? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, I don't mind at all. And Anne-Marie, you interrupt me anytime you have a question for me or anything, okay? Yeah, it was a girl that was my best friend. She also went to the Kingdom Hall. Her mother was best friends with my mom. And so the gentleman that I was pregnant by, she was actually sleeping around with him behind my back. And
okay, your best friend or the mother? I'm not clear.
My best friend at the time.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Yeah, her mother and my mother were best friends, and she and I were best friends, and my best friend was sleeping around with the father of my son. She was doing that while I was actually pregnant with him. So all summer long of my pregnancy, after I graduated high school, my best friend and my son's father were sleeping together. So I don't say that any further. I have learned to forgive her. She's never apologized for it. I've seen her after that within the recent years, but I had to learn to forgive her. It took a while because I felt like she could have at least said, "I'm sorry," even though we would never be friends again, that she could have apologized for it. But being that she went to the Kingdom Hall, see, I never would have expected that, because for the most part, I thought all witnesses were truthful and honest. At least that's what I was taught. That's what I thought. Because they put themselves on a higher pedestal than the friends of mine at school that actually either went to church or didn't go to church, but regardless, they didn't go to the Kingdom Hall. And so the witnesses have always, to me, put themselves above other people. And that's exactly what it is when you feel like only you will gain everlasting life and all of these other amazing people in the world won't. So getting past that, I decided that I was just not going to go back. I knew in my heart at some point I would, but I had decided not to go back because I couldn't understand someone that also went to the Kingdom Hall with me would also do that. I thought that they were different. Even though I knew that I could sin and I fell short, I beat myself up and felt really bad, and felt I wouldn't go back because I would just die and never have life ever again because I had sinned. Had sex before marriage, had a baby before marriage. So I thought that was really just the end of me and my relationship with God, because of what I was taught. So moving on, 10 years later, before then, my mom, she had actually started going back to the Kingdom Hall. 10 years later, I get married. And I had already had a second child, you guys, in between that time. But this time now I'm on my third child 10 years later. I got married, and I got pregnant. And then shortly after that, maybe she was about 2. So she was about 4. And I remember I would talk to his sister and his mother, about going to the Kingdom Hall, because I started leaning more toward going back, because we were taught you don't go anywhere else, and you definitely don't step foot inside of a church. That's where the demons were. They were Babylon the Great. So therefore, I would never step foot inside of a church. I was too afraid to do that. So I started leaning more toward going back to the Kingdom Hall, because by this time I have a full family. I wanted to serve God, and I thought that's where I needed to go. So I started going back to the meetings so that I could be reinstated. So moving just a little bit forward, I did. My husband, of course, he was not a Jehovah's Witness, had never been affiliated with. He comes from going to church. So I got reinstated. And then here comes the bombshell soon thereafter. We were married for 10 years, about 10 years. It was pushing 10. By this time, he started studying. And he gained some relationships with individuals at the Kingdom Hall, even more so a couple of the brothers. One of them in particular really, really loved him, favored him a lot, even though we went through a lot. And my first two children, my son and my daughter, they were not from him. So my middle daughter, he and we were on the brink 10 years later after marriage of separating. And I wish I would have left him 1,000 times before in my marriage, but I wouldn't leave him. Even through all the verbal abuse, I wouldn't leave, because again, I thought I wasn't supposed to, because I didn't have grounds for divorce. Well, finally I had just had enough, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll just be single for the rest of my life, or until he have sex with someone, because I am not going to stay married to this man any longer. I couldn't take it any further. My kids couldn't take it. Well, I'll never forget February of that year. And my daughter, he was not there. My middle daughter, who was not his, she pulled me into her room, and she had told me that he molested her. He performed oral sex on her. And I don't care if he kissed her ear. It's all extremely bad to me. And I don't even, to this day, I just don't even know why he's still alive. And I know I probably shouldn't say it, but I can only speak my truth, and that's how I personally feel. So when he got in, I instantly believed her, and he came in not too far after that anyway. And I asked him in front of her, and he did not deny it. He said yes. Well, needless to say, that was the end of our marriage within a split second. So I'll never forget, I went to one of the elders' home who stayed nearby us. He called one of the other elders over. And that, when I met with them, they told me after we met, they told me to go back home. Basically, they told me to go back home to him, because this is before I told them I was putting him out. But they wanted me to go back home to him, let him stay until they reached out to the society and reached a decision on what I should do. And the society, they told me it would take about 3 days. And I was like, 3 days? Wait, so I'm supposed to go back home to this man that molested my middle daughter? Are you guys crazy? I just, honestly, I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't personally believe it. Sorry, you guys, my husband is coming in. Give me 1 second. Let me let the dog out. I'm so sorry. 1 second.
Wow, this story is blowing me away, but yet doesn't it ring so typically true? You know, a poor girl is trying to right what she thinks she's done to mess up her life, trying to get back right with Jehovah. She's married this guy. She's trying to bring him into the organization. He accepts a Bible study. The elders and the brothers all fuss and fawn all over him, making him, stroking his ego, making him feel like he's so important. And, she's thinking, okay, I'm married. I'm trying to get back with Jehovah. I'm trying to get my husband to serve Jehovah. And what is the reality? What is the reality? And that's what we were talking about yesterday, talking about on the show, Touched by the Tentacles of the Watchtower, and we talk about Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. It's the difference between appearance and reality. And she was trying so hard to live, quote unquote, right and have the right appearance of her personal life, being right before Jehovah, being right before the brothers. And it turns out that in reality, she's living with an abuser. And she's thinking, well, I have to stay with him. He's my husband. I want to be a good, faithful wife. And then when she finally says, enough is enough, I can't do this anymore, she finds out that her sweet baby girl has been molested by this pig who's supposed to be a man of God, who's supposedly, probably, a brother in good standing. Are you there by any chance, Dejan?
Yes, I am back. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Girl, I am like trying not to get sick right now. I feel for you. And you hit the nail right on the coffin. I mean, that's exactly what it was. I mean, you should. So when after I had met with them, and that was just it. He had to go. There was just no me going back. And I remember the wife of one of the brothers, you know, she didn't want me to divorce him. She was like, you know, well, he's one of Jehovah's Witnesses now. He didn't know Jehovah then. And she and we went round and round, and I told her, that's bullcrap. He know better. I mean, you know better. I mean, even as a teenager, you know not to do stuff like that. So I was like, absolutely no way. But that's what they teach you. They teach you to do that, you know, to stay. And how do I say it? You stay even in the midst of you not wanting to stay. Let me say, even in the midst of you when you should not stay. I'm going to word it just like that, because so many women and some men, you know, go through very abusive relationships and they expect you to stay, just as they did when I told them that this man molested my daughter. I even today, I still cannot wrap my mind around that. He did when he did the act, it was a year before I found out. So a whole year went by that she had to live with this, because of course he told her not to tell me. But again, after that, he's going to the Kingdom Hall. He had already started studying, never said a word, nothing. She told me she just couldn't take it any longer, and she told me. So the brother that was actually studying with him, he became so angry with me. And I'm telling you, God is my witness. Gail can tell, she knows exactly who these brothers are. We went to the same exact Kingdom Hall. She knows firsthand, and you all know Gail from After the Storm. She can vouch for what I'm saying. He became so angry with me because his wife decided not to be a Jehovah's Witness. So he just had it out for any woman in the Kingdom Hall that decided not to be a Jehovah's Witness, because his wife had decided she was no longer going to be a Jehovah's Witness. So he basically, he took sides with my husband, although there shouldn't have been a side, my husband at the time. And he had wanted to get baptized. Well, he was so haughty that he felt he should be able to get baptized at the convention that me and my kids would be at. Remind you, my same daughter would be there that he molested. Now, his brothers were pushing for that to happen. One of the brothers from our Kingdom Hall was like, absolutely not. When I went to them, I said, this cannot happen. It should not happen. And please stop this. We wouldn't be there if he really would have came, but he just shouldn't have been able to get baptized, period. Okay. So they did stop him. My brothers ended up fighting for that. The society stepped in and said, okay, we won't let him get baptized there, but he can get baptized at another convention. And I mean, at another assembly, because it was after that convention. Okay, he did. All right. Now, a year later, you guys, now he's baptized. Now we're rolling into, before February was like November. He ended up marrying another sister, bless her soul. They dated for like 2 months. They got married.
couple of months after they got married, because I think they were married November, December, so maybe a couple to a few months. He goes to jail in February of the following year. He goes to jail. Why? Because of drunk driving. Okay, so his wife ended up reaching out to me because now he's in jail. She just kind of she had wanted to meet me before. She just kind of felt like she should maybe talk to the ex-wife just to kind of get some insight on to, into his past marriage, and not in a negative way, but just to kind of know, since I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses also. So anyway, she got my phone number from his mother, and that's the excuse that she told them. So she reached out to me. I did speak with her, and I asked her, did she know what he did to my daughter? She had no knowledge, no clue, no nothing. Not him, not even the brothers told this girl that this man was a child molester. Now that, you guys, I would never, I know I have to forgive them, but right now, it's almost one that I can barely forgive them for, because she too could have gotten pregnant from him, had a child, and the same thing could have been repeated again to another child. So when I told her, and I showed her where she could go look it up, it's still online to this very day, she did. So she talked to her brothers, and what did she do that for? They gave her the hardest time. She didn't care. Within a month, she had already filed for divorce from him. The divorce became final. He was writing her. He would tell the brothers she was ignoring him, and they called her in. She went in to talk to them. They gave her a really hard time about not, communicating with him as the head of her household. And she was like, well, he can't be the head of my household because he's in prison. Now he had to do 5 years, you guys. When he violated his probation, he was on probation for what he did to her. He really got off on a good foot. The courts had allowed him to turn himself in every Friday night for 13 weeks, and they would let him out every Sunday so that he could go to work. So he said, and his attorney said, so he could pay child support for my daughter that was the youngest girl. But so he really got off. Well, when he violated that probation from drunk driving, then he had to do 5 years, which he should have gotten life to me for doing something like that. But that's the law. So he ended up having to do 5 years. And when he got out, it was a February as well. So to this day, I don't like February at all. Even though my sweet husband now, his birthday is in February, and I just have to block it out. But anyway, and to this very day, that same brother would not talk to me again. But I will tell you this. So I got this fellowship after I divorced him. Not right after, but 3 years or so after that. I came back again, all right? So the gentleman that I'm married to now, I told the brothers that I was not going to talk to them until after he and I got married, because, we were already doing what we were doing. We ended up staying together. And I knew that I was, not going to stop doing, my activity with him. So I got this fellowship. I did go in. I talked to them. But before I did, my husband had said something that actually woke me up. And this is exactly what caught my attention. He said, well, wait, I have a problem with my wife going and talk to 3 men about her sex life, and about what she's doing at home that's none of their business. And at first I didn't think about it. Like I said, I went in, I talked to the brothers, got this fellowship, but I thought about it. I was like, you know what? He has a good point. He's right. I mean, I never thought about me going in there talking to 3 brothers about what I was doing. This is them it made me go back to when I was a teenager. So I'm in there, and then it was 2 brothers, but I'm in there talking to these men. They don't ask you, oh, did you just have sex? Were you just having sex? Mm-hmm. It doesn't stop there. They want to know, well, what kind of sex were you having? How often were you having it? who were you having sex with? Well, I started thinking about that and how humiliated I had been, even as a teenager, having to talk to anyone outside of my mother about my sexual activity. And I was like, oh my God, my husband, he has a good point. I shouldn't be talking to three men about what I'm doing. I shouldn't be talking to three women at Kingdom Hall that's going to make a determination about my heart condition that they know nothing about in reference to my activity. They don't know what I'm going through, what I've been through. Whether I went through anything or not, it's still none of their business. So then I started to wake up and I stopped going to the Kingdom Hall altogether. Now, I hadn't made the decision at that time that I was not going back. I was still stuck on, I'm just going to say it in a funny sense, just to be funny. I was still stuck on stupid. Because remember, all of this is embedded in my head. You don't go nowhere else. You have to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses because you're not going to gain everlasting life. You will lose your life. That was embedded in our convention. That was embedded at the Kingdom Hall. It was embedded in every Bible study, every other witness that you talk to. There was always the topic of conversation. You don't do this, Jehovah will be disappointed, or you're going to bring reproach upon Jehovah. Well, when I stopped going, Gail and I, we ended up reconnecting because, like I said, I had gotten disfellowship. So then Gail and I, we lost communication. And then Gail had ended up getting disfellowship later. And then she and I, we reconnected. Gail reached out to me. I think it was on Facebook, if I'm not mistaken. We started talking. She was talking to me about some things, and then I was telling her about how I felt. And Gail started sharing with me the real truth, the truth that I knew from back in the, that I knew from back in the day that should have been the truth, and that going to the Kingdom Hall and being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I was not being taught their truth at all. And so Gail started helping me to see what I had been feeling inside for so long. And like I told Gail, who were they to determine if I was sorry or not? I don't care if I did do it repeatedly. I knew my heart. I knew how I felt about God. These men were trying to be God. And it wasn't right because they are not God. They cannot make that determination about me. But yet I did, I allowed them to because I didn't know any better. I thought I was doing the right thing to save my life. So once Gail started confirming what I knew was right and then what was also wrong with Jehovah's Witnesses, I started, of course, doing my research. She helped me to learn how to do my own research for myself, not based on what she was telling me, but for myself. And it was so important. It was the best day of my life reconnecting with my dear friend. It really was. And then I started to learn more and more and more. And then I started speaking up. It took me a minute to do that because I hadn't firmly made a decision that I would never go back. But then I made my decision, you guys. I would never go back again. You cannot force me or get me to go into a Kingdom Hall under no circumstances unless it is to do a protest. That would be it. So a brother came to my house where I'm right now, my mom's old home. I met his daughter at the bank, me and my husband, and she was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I didn't know it. So I told her when she asked me that I know her parents, and when she told me their name, I was like, oh yeah, I used to go to the Kingdom Hall with them. And so to my surprise, she had her dad, they came by one morning, they were in field service, they came by. So talking to him, I started sharing with him why I would never go back to the Kingdom Hall. So eventually he was getting frustrated and he told me, he said, so your mind is made up, right? I told him, absolutely. My mind is definitely made up. I'm never going back to the Kingdom Hall. I would never be one of Jehovah's Witnesses again. And so he said, okay, well, your mind is made up. So you have a great day. And he left. That was it. Nothing more, nothing. I mean, just nothing. Never checked back on me to make sure we were okay. Remind you, my mom had just passed away. He didn't care about that. Only thing he cared about was whether I was going to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses again. So to this very day, his daughter, she's still a Jehovah's Witness. She got married. They moved away. I still talk to her this very day. That just goes to show you that we are all human, and it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter the shade of your skin. It doesn't matter what religion you're a part of. We are all human, and we should all be there for one another. And to this very day, I'm going to continue to fight the fine fight and make sure that I try my best to help those that are in that religion, that want to come out, or that don't know. But either way, or that just have family and friends that are in there, and they see the downfall, they see the hurt, the pain, and everything that it can do to relationships across the board. So that's my walk of life. I will tell you guys this. So that ex-husband that molested my daughter, now he is married for the third time to a lady that is one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I just call her a mail order bride. I know I probably shouldn't say that, but it's the truth. He ended up finding her online from another country through this, I guess, one of the sites maybe they wasn't even supposed to be on. But, you know, they do have their little online community that I guess the brothers warned them about. But anyway, that's where he found her. He brought her here. Her dad, she's definitely depressed. He still drinks. He's still verbally abusive and everything like that. And her dad passed away. She couldn't even be there to see her, you know, to say her final goodbyes to her dad. And you know why? Because the government, they will not give her citizenship for a while because he is a sex offender. He's a child molester. So, and sadly, brothers, yes, ma'am.
Deshawn, I'm sorry. I'm fascinated by your story, and I know everybody's listening, but we do have a really tight time frame. We have about 9.5 minutes before Rick needs to go to the JW World News. So we want to have time to kind of go over your testimony, and we want to give time to people who want to comment or ask you questions. There are so many notes that I took. You came in at 7 years old. Your mom got meaner after she came in. So did mine. You were nominated homecoming queen. You had to hide it. Your mom made you turn it down, and she embarrassed you. You discovered you had the ability. Basically, you had talent as a track star. You beat the fastest girl, but yet you weren't allowed to run track, and running makes you feel happy. I know that. Mom slapped you in front of all of your schoolmates at one time. You did street work. You were embarrassed when you saw any of your schoolmates saying you had to go to the bathroom. You felt like you basically had to wear a mask, and I understand that one. You baptized, you let yourself get baptized, even though you knew that you really didn't want to please your mother around 1990, and then about the summer of the next year, you were disfellowshipped. You realized that though you got baptized, you really couldn't explain your religion to anyone, but yet you were trying to please everybody, go along to get along. After you were disfellowshipped, you and your mom stopped going to the Kingdom Hall for a while. Your mom started kind of going off the rails herself. After about 2 years, you tried going back. You got pregnant in high school. After 10 years and 3 children later and getting married, you tried going back to the Kingdom Hall, you know, about appearances. You tried to do everything, quote unquote, you're supposed to do. You tried to get your husband to join the Watchtower. Your husband accepted the study. Brothers are fussing all over him, stroking his ego. I can only imagine it. Your husband was abusive. He was basically an a-hole. And finally, you leave him after 10 years. And then your daughter, after you separate, tells you that she's been basically being molested for about a year. If I understood you correct, she's been sexually being assaulted by your husband. You told the elders that the husband had even confessed to what he had done. He admitted it, and they still, knowing that he was abusive and a child molester, the elders told you to go back to your husband, the molester and the abuser, until the elders heard back from the society. That is one of the most disgusting facts and most shameful secrets of the Watchtower. And I have to say, why is it okay for a brother, even though he wasn't technically baptized, why is it okay acceptable, forgivable for a brother to beat up his wife, abuse his children, and be a pedophile and molest his own stepdaughter. But that seems to be not such a bad thing, oh, well, be good to your husband. But yet the young teenage sweetheart who was in love with her boyfriend, who gets pregnant, she's the one who's the terrible sinner. She's the one who's shamed and shunned and disfellowshipped. The molester, your ex-JW husband who was a molester, then he goes and gets with another JW lady who doesn't know he's a child molester. The elders don't warn her. She gets married to him, not knowing who he really is, what he really is. And then you tell her, and thank God you did, because like you said, she could have ended up in the same situation. And that you said you were disfellowshipped again after you left your abusive husband. Who the heck does that to a wife who's trying to save herself and her children? And then you have a new husband who sounds like a decent guy. Please give him a hug for me. And he weirds out to go to the elders to try to, see if you can work your way into being in good standing with the Watchtower. And your new husband says, wait a minute. I have a problem having my wife having to go before 3 men in private to talk about her sex life from since you were a teenager, and that helped to wake you up. And you said you still believe, because you were indoctrinated like we all were, you still did believe, even though you're starting to wake up, that you were, because you were taught that you have to be faithful to the Watchtower in order to be, pleasing to God. And then you said you reconnected with your old friend Gail. And Gail was the one that helped you along your way to understanding the real plan of salvation, that God's plan of salvation is in the Bible, taught you how to do your own research, and that led you to know you don't have to go to Watchtower. You don't have to be in that organization. And I understand, I assume you did come to Christ. Is that true? Yes?
Absolutely. Yes, sure did. Absolutely.
Well, thank you.
One moment.
We have 4 minutes, and I want to invite anyone, please feel free. This sweet, sweet woman, this precious sister of ours, Miss DeLon, has been wonderful in sharing her story. Anybody want to say hello to DeLon? Comment, question? Star 6?
Deshaun, this is Dick Boogie. I believe every single word that you said. And the reason I believe it is I've been involved with 6 Screens for 16 years, and I've heard a lot of stories that are very, very similar to yours. And if you think about it just a little bit, you've got a husband molesting a child, whatever kind of molestation it was. You can go to jail for that. You can go to jail for that for a long time. Maybe not in this judicial system now, but 30 years ago or so forth, they locked you up and threw away the key. The point that I'm trying to make is that child molesters get themselves raped and beat up and killed in prison. So if you get sent away to a prison for molestation or something like that, you could easily be murdered in prison. It happens all the time. This business, so the reason I make that point is he could very well kill you or your daughter so he doesn't go to prison. He could have done that. And then the Watchtower would be blood guilty, and they're always, they've got oceans of blood that they've shed through, not having blood transfusions and stuff like that. They're quite guilty. And I know in my case, I was disfellowshipped for immorality, and I was still living in the same city. Everybody knew where I lived. Nobody came, and they didn't go look for the lost sheep because I was too much of a problem for them. So I believe every single word that you said, and this is how the Watchtower is. They will tell someone to go back and live with an abuser, and they'll keep their fingers crossed that something bad doesn't happen. And if it does, they're going to tell you to shut up and don't say anything about it. Thank you for coming on. 6 Screens.
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You got a lot of courage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for DeLon.
Sure.
Okay. DELON, when you found out about your daughter, did you ever think about going to the police, or did the Jehovah's Witnesses discourage you from going to the police?
So yeah, initially, great question. They did discourage me because I did let them know I would be contacting the authorities, and it was in that same setting that they told me they would be reaching out to the society, and it would take 3 days, and then they would get back with me. But I did go to our local authorities. Unfortunately, it took them about a year. Believe it or not, it took them about a year before they even contacted him about the case. And then when they did, then that's when they moved to action, and then we had court, and then he still kind of got off on a good foot. If they, even online, when you look it up, they have him classified as low risk, but I don't see how, I guess because he only did it one time. But that one time was a lifetime for me, and even more so for my daughter. She's still dealing with depression from that to this very day. And luckily, like myself, she has a great and amazing husband, and now she has a daughter, a 4-month-old baby. And Gail knows. Gail, we went to the same Kingdom Hall, so I can even make this up if I tried. Gail knows firsthand what I had to go through, who I had to go through with it, go through with it from, with. She knows firsthand, and it is sad, but it's something that I know I'm not the only one. And I know there are others who probably went through even worse, but that's how they do you. And that is a great question. I certainly did. They didn't want me to, but I did it anyway.
Good for you.
Wow.
Thank you.
DeJohn, hi, DeJohn. We're out of time, and I just wanted to thank you. I hope you know, even though I'm rushing you and interrupting you, I want you to know that I am very thankful, very grateful for you for coming on, for taking the time to share from your heart, your personal testimony, what you went through from the age of 7 years old. You know, the way your mother treated you so much worse after coming into the Watchtower. And I have to tell you, even though my mother was basically a sweetheart, even I remember she got stricter and colder. But I am so sorry for everything you've gone through, and I want to thank you so much for sharing your testimony. And we do have to go to JW World News now. And just thank you. Just please know we all thank you.
Thank you as well. I appreciate being here. You all have a great day. I love y'all.
Love you, and have a beautiful, blessed day. Thank you again. Rick?
Yes, in fact, DELON, she gave quite the testimony. A lot of people listening in, and I have to say, Anne Marie, this program really is amazing, because we're really getting down to the real problems that so many people have witnessed while we're in the organization, and how happy they are to be able to get out of it and connect with real Christians. So good program. Thank you very much, Anne Marie. Well, anyways.
Thank you, my brother.
Anyways, we're moving on. We've got JW World News. That's coming up next, right here on our 6-Screen Sunday. So by all means, stay with us. I like that program. I don't know what it is, but I'm getting attached to that program. Boy, you're going to hear so many things on that program that are just unbelievable. But we're going to end it here. Now, listen, we're ending this broadcast, and we got JW World News coming up next. That'll be on YouTube as well. And also Jay Hess, he comes in about another hour. He'll be on YouTube and Facebook. So we're going to end this broadcast, but come back and see us in about 3 or 4 minutes. We'll be back on with JW World News. Going to end it right here. Thank you for coming in, all you folks on all of our different platforms.